Welcome to Walking the Talk, the leadership podcast that swaps boardrooms for the great outdoors. My name is Robert Lloyd Griffiths, and each episode we take a walk in the stunning countryside with leaders who are making an impact, exploring their journeys, lessons learned, and hopes for the future. There's something about walking side by side that creates a more open, relaxed conversation. That's exactly what we're here to capture. Today's guest is Dr. Barrie Kennard, Head of Professional Practice at Call of the Wild, where he's been helping shape leadership development for over 12 years. Barrie's expansive career includes time as a Chief Executive of the Welsh Government Centre for Excellence in Leadership Skills. He's worked around the world from sub-Saharan Africa to China and Pakistan and spent 18 years with Cardiff University. His expertise covers leadership, management, emotional intelligence, communication, mentoring and coaching, and his doctoral research focused on modern apprenticeships and work-based learning. So Barrie brings a wealth of experience, a sharp mind, and a genuine passion for developing leaders. So Barrie, are you ready to go walking?
Indeed I am, Rob. Looking forward to it.
Very much so, me too. Well, Barrie, here we are in Forest Farm Country Park. Now, this is probably an area that's quite familiar to you, just nestling between Rada and Whitchurch, and just a little bit over to my left at the moment is the Taff. But you're just born and bred down the road.
I am, yeah. Born and bred in Manacti first, the Manacti estate first, and then, about 10 years after that, we moved on to the Gabalva estate. Me, my mum, my dad, and my nan. My granddad, who I did live with for years, had passed away by then, and there was just us then.
Yeah, and tell me about those early days with the family living just down the road in Gabalva. Obviously a loving, happy family.
Well, my mum and dad were workers, hard workers, and they would be constant workers, you know. So my nan and granddad brought me up, really. Granddad worked on the railways. My nan, as was the thing in those days, didn't work. Her job was... No, she did work. She just didn't have a paid job. And she would keep the house running and Grandad would come in and, you know, his food would be prepared. So that was the way how I was brought up.
I'm interested to see that the Barrie of today and the Barrie of all those years ago, you know, a leading exponent and expert in leadership. Where did that come from? Is it from a family or is it just something that's developed? They always say, you know, leaders are born, not made, but you can acquire these skills. Where did all that come from?
I wasn't a born leader. I came from none of my family were in any kind of leadership or management position. Although my dad did run a pub in his later years. He ran. First of all, he was the manager of what was called Hallinan's, but is now the Rummer Tavern.
Okay.
So he was manager of that, and then he managed. Oh yeah. Yeah, Hallinan's, yeah, crikey, yeah. I mean, he used to say about how busy it was in there on international days. Yeah. My dad from Brighton never quite got the Welsh rugby vibe, right. To be fair to him. He was a little bit short-tempered with people who went, it's just good spirits rugby. So, and my mum, Cardiff girl through and through, so they had the pubs. But did that give me an insight into management? I don't think so. I don't know where it came from. I wonder, actually, whether it came from my early employed years on BT being managed so badly.
Okay, right.
You know, the standard of management was shocking in the 70s. Yeah, experienced how it shouldn't be done, and just thought, well, I bet I could do different. I bet I could do this better than them.
And did you think to yourself in those early days, you know, this is something which floats my boat. This is something I could perhaps take a greater interest in and do something a little bit with my life?
What, leadership?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever heard the phrase leadership. It was management. Right. Because we're talking about the 70s, the very early 70s. 1972 I joined BT. Yeah. September the 6th, 1972, okay. Never a date you forget. And I didn't know about leadership. They were just managers, bosses. And in those days, a lot of them got to be a boss on time served.
Yeah. This is a subject you touch on quite a lot, isn't it? Yeah. You know, it's all about you get the job, not because you're good, but because you've been there long enough. Yeah. that it's about time, it's your go.
And invariably, it didn't work.
Does that work these days still?
No, because we're more enlightened now. Okay. It's not about how long you've been there. It's whether or not the feeling is you can do it. And then the more enlightened businesses start training people to be leaders and managers before they actually give them a leadership and management role.
Yeah, and I'm interested to pick up on some of those topics later on. Okay. But can I just sort of take you back to, the early Kennard days? You left school at how old?
16.
Straight into work?
Well, weirdly, no. This is something, this is a first. Yeah. No, when I was 16, I left Cathays High School with no qualifications, nothing at all. And I wanted to go into the Merchant Navy.
Okay.
Because my dad was a Navy man, and my dad was a radio operator in the Navy, in the war. And I wanted to go into the Merchant Navy. And so I applied to join a course to become a radio officer in the Merchant Navy, and was told, well, you haven't got the qualifications and you're too young. So I was 16. Yeah. And they said, almost as to keep me quiet, but you can have a go if you like. We got an entrance exam, which I sat and passed. Right. So I went on this course to become a radio officer in the Merchant Navy, 16 years old, at least 2 years, maybe 3 or 4 years younger than everybody else on the course. Yeah. And I qualified as a radio officer for the Merchant Navy.
Wow.
And then I failed the medical.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I had asthma as a child.
Oh, good Lord.
And in those days, there were no inhalers or anything like this. You took Franol tablets.
Yeah.
And they said, no, it's too dangerous for you to be on a ship in the middle of the ocean having an asthma attack, so you can't do it.
Wow.
So, I'd spent 2 years training for that, to be told you can't do it. And so I went on to BT.
So BT's gain, Navy's lost?
Well, I don't think BT saw it as a gain, to be honest, because I was a nightmare of an employee.
Why would you say that? Why would you be a nightmare?
I had probably the worst sick record on BT at the time. No. I hated it.
You didn't like it?
No,
okay.
I hated it. And once I left BT and changed my career, I probably had about 10 days sick in the last 20 years, because I was doing something I enjoyed.
You found your niche and you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so going back to that thought, that passion for leadership or management, as you called it, or being the boss, right the way through then your career with BT, you must have worked with some good bosses, bad bosses. What defined, in your estimation, a good leader, a good boss in your early career?
Throughout my career, the best boss I ever had was on BT.
Okay.
Even though I said that generally they were awful.
Yeah.
And his name was Paul Porter.
Right.
And he was the best boss. A lot of my colleagues didn't like him at all. But I looked at him and I thought, you're doing it right. He was good with people. You didn't mess him about. He was understanding. He would join in. He could be one of the boys, but he was also the boss. He was excellent. But then he's probably the only one who stood out. Most of the others were very, very poor.
And did that sort of level of poor leaders or poor managers or poor colleagues that you work with, did that sort of spur you on in your career to think, do you know what, one day I'm going to be involved in actually enlightening others as to what a good leader should be? And did that instill your academic aspirations?
No, because as far as I was concerned, I had no academic aspirations. I'd been told by school that it wasn't for me. Academia wasn't for me. Going into exams, they didn't put me in for exams because it wasn't for the likes of me.
Later in life, you become a doctor, a lecturer, the head of leadership management Wales, all these things that now you are a leading light in actually advising and promoting good leaders and what should be the qualities of a good leader.
Yeah.
Ironic.
Absolutely. Ridiculous, some might say. But the point is, because I knew how awful it was to be managed by someone who was inept.
Yeah.
As soon as I got to be a manager, I thought, I'm going to make sure I treat people properly. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of poor practice as a leader, so I'm going to make sure that's not me and not the people I lead.
Right. I'm going to pause a little bit, Barry, because I'm going to look to our left now
Yeah.
and just come into view amongst the children, the kiddies playing in the background and the bikes whizzing past us, by the way, on this Taff trail. We've got the River Taff.
Yeah.
Now, we were talking earlier that you remember seeing the Taff black, the industrial heritage of Wales.
Black. Yeah, my favourite story about the blackness of the River Taff and all the canals and everything is we would go swimming in the canal when we were kids.
Yeah.
And my nan always knew when I'd been swimming in it, and I could not work out how she knew. I just didn't. And I'd come home and she would say, "You've been in," she called them the warmies, because the warmies were the warm things in Roath that went past the water coolers. Yeah. The water was warm in there, and we would go swimming in there. Yeah. Come home, smack across the ear from my nan, "You've been in the warmies." Yeah. For the life of me, I thought, how does she know? How could she possibly know? And I asked her years and years later, and she said, "Well, the coal dust used to catch in your little moustache."
Oh, there you are.
And I'd come home with a black moustache.
You can't pull the wool over Nan's eyes, can you?
No.
Let's stop, because let's just take in the scenery here. It's just we're just adjacent, I think, to Rada railway station, and a little bit further up is the Mellon Griffith Canal. But we'll come on to that, and then we'll also come on to maybe further developments in your career.
Okay.
It's an idyllic day, Barry, today, isn't it?
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. The water's sort of trickling by us. You know, it's a fab spot. Part of the industrial heritage of Wales, really, the Taff, 25 miles up the road, Merthyr Tydfil, taking all those coal and iron and then exporting to the rest of the world. You know, we've got a pretty interesting and deeply industrial background here, haven't we?
Yeah, I think if my career had gone in a different direction, if I could have had my ideal career, then I would have been a social historian, because I absolutely am fascinated by it. I love the way things happen and the effect those things have on people. Yeah. And whether it's changing the way we live, changing the way our attitudes to other people, all of that, I'm just fascinated by that.
But things happen, don't they, as well, in business, and themes come through in leadership, and you have followed the themes of leadership for many years. What's changed in the last 30, 40 years since you first started in terms of the approach to leadership and how we look upon leaders of today? You know, emotional intelligence is hugely important these days. You know, and you know, we touched on before the way in which people are promoted. You know, they turn up as a sales director on Friday, and then they're promoted to sales manager or whatever on the Monday. And what happens over the weekend to actually make that big difference?
Yeah, well, nothing happens. That's the problem. But an awful lot of organisations rely on what we now call the magic weekend, where people go home on a Friday, come back on a Monday, and somehow or other they've turned into leaders. It's usually doomed to fail. Which sad, really, and I think it's been the destruction of quite a lot of careers. Really, organisations lost people who were really good, but didn't think they could do it because they hadn't been trained. They weren't ready to do it, so they went, "Oh, that's that," and off they went, and they pursued careers in other directions.
And it still happens.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Will we ever learn?
Well, yes, slowly. We will slowly learn. I mean, you've only got to look at. Let's use sales as an example. For some years, I was head of sales training in the Western Mail and Echo, as you know, and there they used to get the best performing salesperson. Thank goodness it was person, not man. It was whoever was the best performing, and then they'd offer them the job as sales manager of the team they were in. So they would then stop performing. So the team loses their figures. They then manage a team that's suddenly reduced in output. or income or whatever the metric was. And then they think, oh, hang on, it's gone downhill since I took over. Yeah. Well, they were never trained. It was just chaotic. And so it was one of my major battles in there to try and get people to think differently about how they promote and who they promote.
So you're saying head of training at Western Echo. I mean, I started my career off at Western Echo, and Thompson training in those days was
the best.
Was the best,
yep.
Best of the best. Yep. And I'm no doubt that the training that now is in place is really good. I don't know, but I remember my Thompson training days with great fondness.
If you were Thompson trained, you were marketable. There were all the other papers wanted to offer you a job. Yeah. You know that. Yeah. They all did. And they'd offer you a nicer car or a bit of a bigger salary or whatever, because Thompson trained was the best.
Was the best. And so after that time at Thompson, Western Echo, where did you go next?
Cardiff University.
Yeah, straight in.
Yep.
To Cardiff University. And what was that first role at university for you?
Lecturing on the degree I did. Because I got my first degree when I was 46. You know, the oldest student in the world. Except the whole group were adult returners to learn. Yeah. And that fired my interest in that. Because it said, you haven't got to follow this natural continuum. You go to school, you pass your exams, you go to university, you get a degree, you haven't got to do that. For lots of people, that's not the path, you know. So I did I got on the degree program because I had been working for a training company, and part of the sweetener for me to go and work for them, sounds a bit big-headed really, but they wanted me to work for them. They offered me a sweetener, and the sweetener was they'd pay for a degree, part-time degree, that I, in my ego-driven world, had decided I was always good enough to do a degree. So I did a part-time degree, 3 hours a week, in Cardiff University in the old School of Education, a B.Ed in vocational training, and it was brilliant. I mean, I must say, after the first day, I thought, I can't do this. I'm not as clever as I thought I was, so I didn't understand any of it. I'd never done that kind of level of learning before, but I loved it and got my degree when I was 46. Ridiculously, and this I think shows how much luck I've had in my life. I sat next to a woman who was head of HR for the Western Echo. Right. Pat Lewis, who's still a great friend of mine. And one day, after about 3 months, she said, "We're looking for a new director of training. Do you want the job?" It doesn't get any luckier than that, really. So I, of course, said yes. Went there and got my degree some time later. Left the Western Mail, because whenever budgets are tight, the first thing people cut is training. It's the training budget that goes first. So I left there. The day I left there, I got a call from Cardiff University saying, "Do you want to come and lecture on the degree you sat?" Luck again, really. And I was then there for 18 years.
And it's a fascinating story, isn't it? You know, what do you think Pat saw in you to offer you that job? What do you think she saw in you?
Do you know what? That's a good question, Rob. I'm not 100% sure. Because I was still pretty green, and I didn't really have any. I wasn't coming from a leadership position. I was doing a bit of leadership, I suppose, but I wasn't really a manager or anything in the training company I was in. But I don't know. I mean, we were friends, and we were great friends, and I would answer some of her questions. I mean, she always says it's because I was just so ordinary.
and I was actually going to suggest that to you. You know, it's the relatability. I mean, we often talk or hear or read about leadership, and it's very highfalutin. And you know what you do is kind of debunk some of those convoluted theories of leadership, I think, and I think you, as I say, you make it more relatable. That's important, surely.
Absolutely. I truly believe that people are making leadership too complicated. Too complicated, too wordy, too let's all make this really full of theories and all of this. I think there's too much of it. Now, if the cynical side of me says, is that because they want to make it something that's almost like a magic art, you know, and You want to watch that, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. I've spent most of my later career saying, you haven't got to do that. No. The one thing about leadership is people. Okay. It's how you relate to people.
So, the one thing is people. I'm going to ask you the top 5 qualities of a good leader. I mean, you may repeat them. It may be the same thing 5 times. But what would that be? The 5 qualities of a good leader.
Good communicator, number one. I've never seen I've never seen a leader who was good, but was a bad communicator. I think that's the absolute number one thing. The second thing is a complete lack of hubris.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, hubris is this belief, do you know who I am type of thing. Okay. And I can behave as I want to behave because of who I am. Okay. And so, and a hubristic leader is usually highly ineffective as well. Okay. Because they're just convinced they're better than everybody else. So I would say a lack of hubris is another one. High level of emotional intelligence. Right, yeah, I get it. You know, we say emotional intelligence is now the most accurate predictor of leadership success. Yeah. It doesn't matter how in inverted commas, clever you are. No. You can have as many degrees and masters and doctorates as you like. It won't make you a good leader. But emotional intelligence will. Yeah. I think Number four is and this is part of emotional intelligence, but it is never worrying about saying I got it wrong.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Never worry about that. Don't worry about saying to the people you lead, I got that wrong. Or that was my fault. Right. That was down to me. And the last one is recognising success at any level. Yeah. A good leader will say, thanks, well done. That was good, well done. And also they'll understand that recognition, just like motivation, is not one size fits all. That's so because recognition to someone is a very quiet word in their ear that says, that was outstanding, thank you so much for doing that. And recognition to others is they want it out loud. They want everyone to see that they've been recognised. Yeah. You've got to know the difference and you've got to do it what fits.
And do you think that you can be a good leader with 3 out of those 5 or 4 of those 5, or have you got to go the whole hog?
Oh, no. You can be... There are 2 big ones in there without which you're going to struggle. Communication and emotional intelligence. Yeah. If those are lacking, or God forbid, missing, then you haven't got much chance, really. Happily, though, they're both trainable.
Okay, and that's my next question, really. I mean, you've preempted it. You know, you can learn to be a good leader. You can acquire those skills. Some would say, you know, many, or maybe you'd say a few, would have those skills naturally. But you can acquire... Maybe not so much emotional intelligence. Either you've got it or you haven't, or can you learn that as well?
No, emotional intelligence is a learnable, trainable trait. Okay. You know, the what you need though is the ability to say I need to get better at that. You know, and there's hubris, if you like. The people who go, I don't need training. I don't want to be. I know what I'm doing. Are sort of destined to fail. Really, but the people who will accept every day's a school day, that I can keep getting better, that I'm never as good as I can be, there's always a little bit better I can be, or a little bit more I know, you know.
And I'm really fascinated by the whole dynamic of what you're doing. I suppose importantly as well, kindness is, I mean, I often think kindness is hugely important in any aspect of life, and to be good and to be decent. And I think maybe that's part of communications. But I think if you're a kind person, you know, some of those traits kind of fall into place. Am I wrong, or? I think... Am I just rose-tinted glasses?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit in that, ask any leader, especially... what's called now the C-suite leadership, you know, real top of the chief execs and all that, and they will all tell you that there are times when you can't be kind.
Okay, you've got to be tough.
There's times when you've just got to go enough. Whether you're saying to someone, look, we're going to cut ties here. This is not or you've got to go, or that's not acceptable. But it might be the way you say it.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, being cruel to be kind, not cruel perhaps, be tough to be kind. Sometimes the kindest thing for somebody is to be told where their limitations or opportunities might lie, and it may not lie within the organisation that you're currently in.
Absolutely, they might actually be in the wrong job.
Yeah, and it's a good leader identifies that and deals with it.
Yeah, and even if it's someone you've known for years and you've liked and you've got on well with, and you think this is. I'm actually, you won't think this right now, but I'm doing you a favour by saying this is not for you. You need to move on.
Well, I'm with Dr. Barrie Kennard on this latest edition of our podcast. And if you can hear in the background some sort of slapping on the floor, it's people running past in jogging. It's not us, Barrie. We're not breaking into a run, are we? Because you just recently hurt your ankle.
Yeah.
So we're not running today.
Yeah.
But we are sort of talking about some really interesting aspects of leadership. And one of the ones that I talked to you about in most recent times is toxic leadership. Is that a new issue, or is that something...
Well, toxic leadership's all around.
Tell us about toxic leadership, because I think it's a really fascinating area that you certainly have been advocating recently. Not advocating... talking about
toxic
let's not be toxic leaders.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Toxic leadership is the result of, in many cases, poor recruitment.
Right, okay. Well, what is toxic leadership first? Tell us what it is.
It comes from a leader who is naturally hubristic, or is narcissistic, or whatever. It's a leader who doesn't do leadership for those they lead.
Okay.
This leader leads for themselves.
I understand.
And for how it makes them look.
Okay.
So all of that, right?
Yeah.
So that would be toxic.
Yeah.
But then to make the toxic leadership actually effective, and in some cases to take an organisation down, is that they need followers some of whom will follow them because they think it's a better person to latch on to.
Yeah.
My career will take an upturn now because I'm seen as following this leader. And again, no gender, nothing, male or female. The leader can be either, the toxic leader. Then they've got another group of followers who won't say anything. They know it's wrong, but they won't say anything because they're afraid of losing their job, which is something else that we talk about, psychological safety. Yeah. They're just unsafe. They think, if I say anything here, I'm going to get the chop, so I'll say nothing. Yeah. And so and then you've also got the third part, which is an environment that needs the toxic leadership because the organisation has been failing. The toxic leader comes in, and by whatever means, there seems to be an uplift in the fortunes of the company. Yeah. So the powers that be go, whoa, well, they must be doing a good thing. We haven't been told they're not, and that's it. There's toxic leadership in a very, very small nutshell. And
this whole psychological, this fear factor, it's prevalent, isn't it? It's still prevalent, and it's a real issue for some organisations. It is, but psychological safety. I mean, one thing we talk about quite a bit when we talk about leadership is business bingo. Phrases come up and everyone says them. Yeah. And they go, oh, we're all going to say that because it's going to make us sound like we've got our fingers on the pulse. Yeah. And look at us, we know what we're doing. And then the phrase disappears. You go, I remember when we all talked about that. Well, what's happened to that now? And it's gone. Yeah. The thing about psychological safety is it was thought of being a bit of business bingo, but it isn't, because it's not going away. And the proof of that is that in 2024, in Australia, a law was passed that with huge fines and possible long-term imprisonment for an organisation or person who is found guilty of not causing a death, but certainly responsible for a death that is a direct result of there being a lack of psychological safety in the workplace. Right.
And so if that's on the statute books in Australia, it won't be long before the rest of the world catch up.
Yeah.
So psych safety is really something that leaders got to understand.
I just want to turn a little bit more, to Barrie. We've really got some great views on leadership from you, Barrie. But you're still at this mature.
Thanks for that, Rob. Nicely put.
Mature level of life that you're in.
Yeah.
You're really passionate about leadership, aren't you? You still, it still floats your boat.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And why is that? Why is that? From the young Barrie back in Gibraltar, and seeing good leaders and good managers, good bosses, to actually getting a good job in your chosen career, then being taken from that job into university life, it still matters to you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why?
It does, because I've got a family, and I got 5 grandkids, 1 3/4 great grandkids. My sons, my daughters-in-law, they're all in the workplace. And I don't want them to go through what I went through in those days on BT with awful leadership. Yeah. I just don't want to do it. So I think because I've had in the past, not so much now, but in the past I've had a voice that people listen to, I thought I'm going to keep trying to make a difference. And whenever I can, we run webinars with Call of the Wild, and they're well attended, and we run them just for me to try and get more and more people to understand the importance, the power of leadership,
And I think it's, as I said before, it's that relatability. It's that debunking some of the myths about leadership, and you do it terribly well. And you can't say that, but I can say it on your behalf. You do that enormously well, because you make easy what some people might find really, really difficult. But and I know it matters to you, and I know that your doctorate was relating to apprenticeship and lifelong learning. It's really important now that people acquire those skills on an ongoing basis. Yeah. And you feel pretty passionately about that as well, don't you?
I do. Yeah. I think CPD, continued professional development, is hugely important. Yeah. And for years it was important if you were an accountant or a lawyer or a medic, you had to get those points in order to allow you to keep on practicing. Whereas now, that's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. We're in the middle of the city.
We're in the middle of the city, and we'll just pause your that thought. But we've just gone a weir. I think it's I don't know where we are actually. I think we're near the Melon Griffith.
Is this Radawir?
Yeah, I think it must be Radawir. So it's a really, really special little area. Sorry, we digressed, but you were talking about the importance of lifelong learning and how that should be valued and even more valuable than it is. Yeah. And apprenticeships are really important. CPD is really important, but lifelong learning is what it's all about for you.
Yeah, but it needs to be supported. And quite a lot of organisations will say, "Oh yeah, we'll put our people on training programmes." But there's the hidden message is, as long as we got time to let them go. Yeah. And so often on Call of the Wild, we get a programme where on the day before we've got 20 people signed up, and on the day there's 10, because organisational issues or whatever, complexities or whatever you want to call it, people say, can't let them go, and it's so short-sighted. You've got to let them go. You've got to get them in this. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's. Apprenticeships in the past, obviously, my grandfather was a apprentice shipwright. Different world these days about the modern apprenticeships, hugely important. We spoke on one of these podcasts recently with Sharon James Evans at Cardiff and Vale College, and massively important. The work they're doing on modern apprenticeships there, hugely beneficial to not only those who are participating in them, but also for the economy of Wales.
Oh, completely. But it's probably worth remembering that at one stage modern apprentices were going to be scrapped. Yeah. 1995, Ken Clark, who might have been the Chancellor at the time, he announced modern apprenticeships, and within 10 years there was talk of them being scrapped because they didn't work. Yeah. And it was just because they weren't being well administered, really. But now they are working, and now you know, I do some work with apprentices, and I love it because then they're all different ages.
Yeah.
You know, they could be any age you can think of, can be an apprentice, and we've managed to take the stigma away from it.
Yeah.
Older people, maybe not as old as me, but older people going on to an apprenticeship don't think they're doing something second rate, or they're a bit embarrassed about it. They see it as a learning opportunity that they're going to make the most of.
Skills acquisition.
Yeah, absolutely.
At any stage of life.
Absolutely.
And hugely important.
You never get to a place in your career where you don't need skills acquisition. Because if you're not careful, you go from unconscious competence, I know the job so well, I haven't got to think about it anymore. Yeah. Listen to people who say to you things like, I can do this with my eyes closed. That should be a red flag. Because if you can do it with your eyes closed, you're not thinking anymore. So you're going to make a mistake. And that's why skill acquisition and offering people a chance to do a little bit of refresher work is vital. It's just seen as something nice if we got time to do.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be.
Got it. Right, I'm going to take a quick pause there. We're going to take in this lovely view in front of us, and then we'll just come back for a little bit more of the conversation. I think time might be overtaking us.
Okay.
We could probably talk all day, couldn't we?
Well, we have in the past.
We have in the past. But we'll pause briefly, and then we'll come back in. Thank you so much so far.
Thanks, Rob. Enjoying it.
Well, Barrie, I'm delighted to be with you today, and for our listeners, I'm walking the talk today with Dr. Barrie Kennard in Call the Wild's latest podcast on leadership and all things relating to leadership. Barrie, you've touched on so many different areas so far. It's been a little bit like a masterclass, I have to say, in terms of your views and opinion. But I suppose that's really appropriate, because you know, masterclasses is what you do day in, day out these days, and it's also what you did when you were working at the university.
Yeah.
I mean, tell us about that time. I think they coined a descriptor of you. Is that right? What was that? You tell us what that was.
Yeah, they called me the Pracademic.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because...
Thought that what it was.
Yeah.
Explain, Professor.
It's because I was a Pracademic because I was more interested in the practical application of theories, thoughts, than I was with the actual theory and the thought. Yeah. It was all, you know, for me, if you can't use it, it's not that interesting. And I'm not saying it's not interesting, I'm just saying that's me. Yeah. That's one of my foibles, if you like, is that it's all about doing. Yeah. And so I used to get a little bit ostracised when I was in there, because I wasn't really interested in writing academic articles. Okay. I've books, things like that. Not for me. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to make people better practitioners. Yeah. That was it.
And that's all part. This is like the golden thread in your career, really, isn't it? It's this practical application of academia. It's this relatability. It's making things simple. And you were honoured, weren't you? By the Institute of Directors.
I was indeed, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that, because it's it's worthy of note.
I'll never forget it. I was on the short list for an award and didn't get the award, and thought, oh well, that's okay. You know, I never won an award anyway, and was still in the, well, it's probably not for the likes of me mode, to be honest. And then I was the inaugural recipient of the Directors Award in the IOD. And I just couldn't believe it. Coincidentally, my Welsh Government manager was on the table with us when the award was announced. Right. And actually it was you who read out this bit about the recipient of the next award is, and you said a little bit about why this person was going to get the award. Yeah. And everybody on my table turned around and went, "That's you." And I went, no, it's not me. It's you know, and it was. And I must say, it's still on the shelf at home. The award, it's one of my proudest achievements in my career. In fact, it might be the proudest achievement, more than getting my PhD.
Oh, that's really interesting. Really interesting.
I got the PhD by being willing to give up 5 years of my life to write it. I got the award from the IOD that other people had looked at me and gone, you should get this. So that's why I thought it was a much better thing.
And it was richly deserved recognition as well for all your efforts. And working in academia, I mean, you enjoyed that as well. It seems to me that, again, you enjoy what you do. You enjoyed that time. You enjoyed that opportunity of working and promoting and raising the profile of leadership. And that's what you did with your team in those days. Yeah. It was all about lifting leadership, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was, and luckily we had the backing of Cardiff University, the name of the top university in Wales, so people would listen. So we would put on events, and they would always be packed. Yeah. Always. But again, this is probably going down to me and my possible imposter syndrome, is that I always got other people to, hang on, excuse me, look at that, Rob.
Oh, the Mellon Griffith and Penturk Tramway, 1815 to 1871. Isn't that incredible? Of course, that's all part of the industrial heritage, writ large, as we're walking along this Taft Trail.
Were huge, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. There we are, you see. We're talking about legacy, and we're talking about opportunity, and there we are. Yeah, you were saying in terms of that level of opportunity within academia.
And getting people who I thought other people would want to listen to, because I was certain they wouldn't want to listen to me. Yeah. So I got them in, and they were great. I learned from all of them. Joe Fairley, who set up Green and Black's chocolate. Yeah. Still someone I communicate with today. It was just a really, really interesting time where we had great speakers and people looked to LMW to do something different, to not be your typical university, very dry but very, very accurate organisation. We made it usable.
And that's the key, really, isn't it? It's back to those 5 points of quality leadership. And there's one thing I wanted to just supplement that part of our conversation earlier. Good leaders have to have good followers too, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Isn't that important?
Yeah, but you create good followers.
Yeah.
A good leader. I mean, one of the big questions I ask anyone who's on one of our programs is, would you rather take over a failing team or a successful team?
Sure.
And the answers are split between the two, really. I mean, my own preference is I would rather take over a team that was struggling than one that was successful.
Because you can mould them, is that right?
Well, you can, and usually they're struggling because of the inadequacies of the previous leadership. So you can go in there with my kind of mindset and go, I'm going to make this about you.
Yeah.
And do just little tiny things that make them important. Yeah. Let them know. I mean, when I left LMW, one of the interesting things said to me was, at the end of every day, you always said thank you.
Okay.
And I didn't.
Small things.
I didn't know I did.
Yeah.
I didn't know I did that.
Yeah.
And someone came up to me and said, why did you bother with that? They were being paid, which makes me and the person who said that complete opposites.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to say thanks for putting up with me, thanks for coming in, thanks for doing a good job, thanks for being happy or whatever,
Yeah. It's about that emotional intelligence you talked about, those five top tips.
Yeah.
And so it's hugely important. So as you reflect on I'm not going to say long, but it's quite extensive.
It is quite long,
and distinguished career in different sectors, in different phases of your life, but most latterly, specifically in imparting leadership skills and qualities. Mm-hmm. Arguably always throughout your career you've done that, but most recently, that's what you're specifically known for. Some highlights and some reflections.
Highlights are some of the places I've spoken, but I've been invited to speak. Okay. Because don't forget, as far as I am concerned, I'm a Gabalva boy. Okay. And everything that's happening to me is incredible. Yeah. I can't believe it. Yeah. I'm an ordinary bloke who's done extraordinary things. And so being asked to speak at places, sort of meeting people.
And some of these places?
well, internationally, in Beijing, I gave a speech in Beijing about CPD.
Okay.
Funny enough, that we had talked about. Yeah. I did that. I couldn't believe I was there, and that I was paid. They paid my fare and all of that to go to. So those are the highlights.
And the people you've met, I suppose.
Yeah, people, and an awful lot of the people I've met, I'm still in touch with. Yeah. They just, I don't know, we just get on.
Just hit it off, and well, you're easy to hit it off with, Barry. That has to be said. You've got this distinguished career, but I know you're always looking to the future. What's the ambition for the role of leadership in the future? When your grandchildren and great-grandchildren enter the jobs market, working in organisations, it's going to be a changed world. AI is changing everything. What are your hopes for them in terms of the quality of the leadership that they encounter in the future?
I hope that leaders stop thinking they're better than other people.
Yeah.
The leadership is just about treating people properly. Yeah. It's not about treating someone the way I would like to be treated myself. That never was for me. I treat people as if they are members of my family. Yeah. How I want my family to be treated, because when we talk about important things in life, my family the most important thing of all.
Sure.
The one that you said about what was the biggest thing in my career. The biggest thing in my life was my wife.
Of course.
In 1970 we met, and we've been together ever since. So she is the sort of guiding principle. But looking forward, well, I'd like to see people leading in organisations that think differently. I think I'd like to see organisations become communities of human beings, where we allow for human beings' frailties and differences, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. Where we take care of each other and not step on each other to get on. Yeah. I despair of people who do that. I really do. I can't stand rudeness, and I can't stand snobbery. Even though I have been accused of being an academic snob, and sometimes I'm watching a television quiz, and someone says, I don't know what that is, and I think, why don't they know what that? Everyone should know what that is. So that comes out in me. But a social snobbery, I really don't like it. So I want organisations, and I want leaders in the future to work in organisations where the only thing that matters is the people. Because if you get that right, you get the organisation right as well.
So you've got great hope for the future, and that's part of your personality, isn't it?
I have, yeah. Optimistic, yeah.
Positive.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I've never sat down and go, oh God, this is all terrible. Oh no, I've always no. There's it's always good. I truly believe a tiny number of people, tiny percentage of people set out to be nasty. I just think sometimes people do something nasty and regret it, or circumstances push them into doing something. But most of us, we're okay, We're kind, we're caring. We'll go the extra mile for those we like and for those we don't know. And we just will,
It's easy to be nasty, but it's so much better to be nice.
I'll remember that, Rob. Thank you for that. I will remember that.
Well, and thank you, Barry. Dr. Barrie Kennard, thank you so much for being our guest today.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.